Hello and welcome to What's a Preacher to Do, sponsored by the Perkins Center for Preaching Excellence. I'm Wesley Allen, the Lois Craddock Perkins Professor of Homiletics at Perkins School of Theology at Southern Methodist University. Now, in this series of short interviews, we're asking scholars of diverse disciplines to help preachers bring a range of critical tools to bear on offering God's good news to individuals and communities as we're dealing with the variety of issues and concerns related to the coronavirus crisis that's going on in today's world. So today we have with us Dr. Owen Hanley Lynch. He teaches corporate communication and public affairs at the Meadow School of the Arts at SMU. He's currently working on a book for the Center for Preaching Excellence with Alyce McKenzie that deals with the intersection of humor and preaching, one of his areas of study. He's also involved in issues related to poverty and economic development. So Owen, what's a key insight from your areas of expertise that you think would be helpful to preachers as they prepare sermons during these difficult times?
I think especially from the sense of economic development and those who are the most vulnerable in our communities, it's important to really think about the environment and the tensions that they're in today as we preach to them. So one of the things that many people don't realize when they think about poverty is how isolated and concentrated poverty is. And isolated, I don't mean how we're all currently experiencing isolation. I mean, they live in parts of town or they live in rural communities that lack services, everyday access to things that we all enjoy and are used to. So going to the grocery store for them could be a 2-hour round trip because there's not a grocery store that sells healthy, fresh food in their community. And fast food restaurants, which are plentiful in their community, are not safe right now. If they are someone who is not legal, or there's someone who is worried about scrutiny, they also risk traveling to go get groceries and getting stopped and being asked, are you on essential business? So that the fear in the very poor communities is really palpable right now. And how do we preach to that? How do we talk to that and recognize the common humanity? And then the simple issues of school Wi-Fi for kids. And I was just helped one of my employees in South Dallas help pay for his daughter's Wi-Fi so her children could attend school while we're on. Little things that we're worried about toilet paper, they're worried about healthcare access and food access and how they make the travel distance. Another thing, whether you're rural or whether you're urban poor, is recognizing the ways people get by is by their network. They share childcare. A friend helps them with their car. They borrow tools with each other and have a barter system for food. They cook for more than one and share foods with their neighbors for other resources. That network is shut down. So they're under the table. The money in which they make money is all cutting grass, doing dishes, where they got cash economy. That has shut down, and they're not going to get reimbursed from that from the government. So there's no relief check coming in, and there's a real scare. Now, the working poor who are working 2 to 3 jobs, who are hourly workers, who they are seeing their car note, which is one of the most expensive items, not being able to be paid. They're starting to really worry, when am I going to be able to get back in work? I was already living on that edge. They're already one crisis behind, but what happens when it isn't just their crisis, it's a national crisis? So the fear and the fact that when they see the news not addressly talking about their particular concerns and when it's going to return back to normal, so the lack of access to resources, we're all experiencing on some level, but the ones who are already lacking access to those resources are feeling it much more acutely and don't have the structures that they've used to survive in this economy for the last 10, 20 years. So preachers need to be naming these issues directly, in your opinion. Correct. I mean, or at least being sensitive to those most vulnerable in their community and recognizing the fear of the unknown, and just how on edge. I mean, I'm worried about not having toilet paper, right? That's what odd socks are for, if I have to go there, right? And we were mentioning earlier before that we got on, our concerns were Wi-Fi jamming, traffic in our homes. Those are common things that people are feeling, and there are ways to relate to people. But recognize when you mention those things, they have a much deeper resonance with people who are really vulnerable. So how do we touch our common things we can identify with? in terms of this tragedy right now in crisis, but then those who are most vulnerable, who we may not realize how on edge they're put. And remember, America is largely in debt right now. You know, the car notes are average 80 months. People are starting to see this upcoming, and it's already been a reality for those in poverty. It's going to start moving into the lower middle class and the middle class.
Well, thank you for that. And I don't want to demean the importance of what you've named at all, but if you don't mind, I'd like to switch 360 degrees to your scholarly interest in humor. I see lots of people in social media coping with fears of illness, with anxiety around isolation related to social distancing. And part of the way they're coping is using humor. Facebook threads already. So I wonder, in what ways do you think humor is or isn't appropriate for the pulpit during these times?
I think that's a great question. Humor is one of the ways in which there's many ways in which humor can be used. And I'll take the three broad perspectives, and which two I think could be useful and which one I think you want to be very careful with. So humor can be used in many ways. Human beings use it to, as you mentioned, to relieve the tension. That's relief humor. Humor that jokes at our common experiences and allows some of the tension of the moment to be gone. In Rhode Island, for example, yesterday, April Fool's Day, the people sent out a cropped picture of the governor saying all kids would have to repeat the grade of school that they're in currently, and it went around for about an hour to everybody, and then it was like April Fools, and it wasn't funny for parents and it wasn't funny for kids, but the laughter that got from that was actually pretty good, and they all recognized how. And there's been lots of memes people sending about activities people are doing at home to relieve boredom, and some parodies of songs that have been shared and enjoyed. Those reliefs that allow us to recognize the current situation we're in and see the common humanity side of it. That's funny. Those are obviously powerful and can be used in the pulpit. And I'll have a warning on that in a couple seconds. The other thing that the largest use of humor is incongruity. How do people make sense of things that don't make sense? How do people point out things that don't make sense? And humor allows us to recognize those. And this clearly is a shifting of our paradigm in time. And so humor can allow us to express things that we took for granted before that we realize are essential. Something like toilet paper, for example. Something like just being able to walk and talk to a neighbor or shake a hand, that touch, and how much we do it all the time without realizing. And humor can get at those feelings of incongruity, not making sense, especially in the context of people's relationship with God. How do we not worship together because it's not safe, but recognizing that it's a fundamental part of worship to come together? And what does new community mean? That's all incongruity. We're trying to make sense of it. Humor is particularly useful for that. The last major use of humor is what we call superiority humor. This is like a Hobbesian frame that I use humor to put somebody down. I use humor, and we want to obviously really avoid that, and we want to avoid dark humor, recognizing too that sometimes relief humor cuts both ways. That when we're trivializing lack of access to toilet paper, when someone's worrying about losing their job and their mortgage, right? That could have a profound effect on somebody who's really vulnerable. So recognizing that humor is always a complex phenomenon in communication. And you want to make sure as you tell your jokes that you're really trying to relieve and really trying to point out incongruity, and not targeting somebody or a group or even the situation for superiority. And so at least I'm not, whatever that may be, that's going to have a profound cutback on people. So I think it's a fundamental part of what it is to be human, to make fun and to make light of tragedy, but don't make it about the tragedy. Make it about the things on the side of it. Does that make sense?
That's very helpful. Thank you. Our time's up, but I just really appreciate you giving us some time. This is Owen Lynch. We look forward to your and Alyce's workshop in October, sponsored by the Center for Preaching Excellence, and the book that will follow. I hope you stay healthy and safe and don't get too bored where you are. And thank you for your work with poverty.
You as well. Thank you very much for the time.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, Wes.